So, pretty wide mix of players in that squad, guys who you've seen plenty of in senior camps before, and then guys who don't even have a huge amount of experience with their provinces. Like, how are you hoping to kind of blend these together over the coming weeks, and what are you hoping to get out of this trip to South Africa?
I guess to put it in context and the year that presents itself, nearly a year out from playing our first game in Rugby World Cup 2023, and we know that we have a real good, strong core group of players that has been with us for a number of years, but we have to try and grow the depth and look further into the talent pool in terms of our squad going forward. And this is a real opportunity to build some continuity for some of those players that will have been with us in New Zealand during the Maori games and spent time with us in the environment there, but also bring back a few players that have been out of the system for a while due to injury or form, and also look at some of the depth in certain positions that we need to fulfill a World Cup year, which we know is 33 players will go to the World Cup, but we all know that number needs to be higher, and we need to have a larger pool of players at our disposal to do that, and to effectively have that number of players. We need to spend more time with players and get to know players, connect with players, and that's why there's a kind of a good cross section of mixture of players that have got a few caps, players that have spent time in the environment recently, but also players that won't have had any time in the environment, and that gives us an opportunity to expose them to what we're trying to do as a team, and for us as coaches in particular to connect with those players and get to know them a bit better in what will be a really challenging year.
And did you have to be wary picking that squad, not so much about who you were bringing, but who you were actually leaving with the provinces as well, so that you weren't taking too many players from one province and leaving them short in a certain position?
Yeah, 100%. There's been dialogue right through with Andy and the provincial coaches in particular, discussing players, discussing their needs, our needs. There's been compromises. There'll be some selections that the province will feel that they'd be better served with them, but there's also players that we feel will be better served at this moment in time, exposing them to our environment and looking at the bigger picture. The longer term, short to longer term is this year presents itself with not just the 3 games in South Africa, but there's an Island A game against a New Zealand 15 in the autumn. There's 3 tests in the autumn. There's the Six Nations, and then there's the pre-World Cup. So there's not that many opportunities to expose players to the environment and find out a little more about certain players. But with that in mind, we also have to, feel like we're not ripping the heart out of the provinces and taking too many players in one position. And I'm sure there'll be discussions along the way. Injuries will inevitably happen throughout the next couple of weeks, and we have to be prepared to be flexible and compromise as the provinces have been in allowing us to select this team.
So you're saying, like, potentially some of the guys you picked may not be able to travel just with their injuries in certain positions in the province?
I think that'll be a discussion that we'll have along the way, like it always is. There's always discussions about players, about what the provincial needs are versus what we feel are our needs, and those discussions happen weekly within the provincial and national setup, and that won't change across the next few weeks.
Hi, Simon Ashton here from Off the Ball. How are you?
Good.
Just when you're speaking of the clubs there, obviously the tour is going to clash with some of the games. Is it something that you did speak to the clubs about, and were they all okay with it?
Yeah, I think there's been dialogue going on for quite some time about this this trip to South Africa. Again, it's come down to some individual conversations about individual players. The wider context I guess, for us is that we're trying to build that depth in the squad for us as a national team. To do that, we need time with the players. We need to find out a little bit more about them, about their personalities, about how do they adapt to international rugby, or at least adapt to situations where we've only got 3 or 4 training sessions to prepare for a game. We've got 3 games across a 10-day period. We're only together for 18 days. There's lots of things that we've had to sort of consider within this. One of them has been, how much are we disrupting, the provinces and their needs in the URC. And I think we've tried to be as flexible as we can be, and there's always going to be question marks over certain selections because of that, but we also feel like there's been a good dialogue throughout this process, and hopefully we've come to a position where we've not disrupted things too much. The timing of the tour coincides with a lot of players returning from their national break, the international players. So that player management and welfare has been sort of the forefront of a lot of what we've been talking about, and understanding that yes, we're taking players out of their system, but there'll also be players re-entering their system at the same time as when we travel.
There's a good mix within the group that was selected. Rob Balakoon is probably a name that's been around the fringes of the first team. What is it that you hope to see from him on this tour, or what else do you hope to gain from seeing him in action?
Well, Rob was due to come to New Zealand with us and didn't because of injury. So Rob is certainly one that's been around, like you say, around the environment for a while, but he's only got a couple of caps, and I guess him and a few others in there, we feel like there's still a need for us to build time and exposure in what we're trying to do. We're really lucky at the moment that all the players are getting a high level of coaching and expertise in the provinces, but we do things slightly differently as the provinces will do. So we need to make sure that we keep them aligned to what we're doing in the national setup. It's not 100, it's not a million miles apart from each other, but there's always going to be little nuances and differences that we have that each province will do slightly differently. So it's just, I guess, for someone like Rob who has spent time in the environment, he came in as a kind of development player a couple of years ago, and then won a couple of caps and did really well. Then he's had to spend a bit of time out with injury. We would have loved to have seen him in New Zealand getting opportunities out there, but we didn't get that chance. So he's one that we feel he will benefit from spending more time in our environment. Hopefully he goes back to Ulster after the experience and he kicks on again, and there's this massive opportunity over the next couple of months through the A game and the autumn internationals, and beyond that into the Six Nations and beyond. The players like Rob and others will see that the time spent with us in the bigger picture is hopefully going to expose them and give them a real good foundation for this season ahead, because it is such a massive season for all of us.
Brilliant, thanks Evan.
Simon, you mentioned the difference making coaching or focus on the training pitch, even in the players' positions, like Kieran Foy listed as a 10, having played there against the Maori team, plays 12 with Leinster. Is that a challenge for Ireland potentially with a few players where you see them?
I think there has to be a degree of flexibility, but we feel Frols has the potential to lead in a number of different positions. Obviously, he's played 12 a fair bit for Leinster, but we see him, which he did in the Maori weeks, as being a guy that can lead from the front at 10. Lead a week. He'll be asked in the next few weeks to do a slightly different role to what he was doing in New Zealand, because he had a lot of senior players around him. We feel like he has the ability to step up and front the week, lead the week, as someone like the extreme Johnny Sexton does week in, week out, and has done that for a number of years. So giving those players like Frols the opportunity to put himself at the forefront of a week, lead it and take the team to a performance on a weekend in that position at 10 is crucial for us. We're still finding a little bit about Frawls and the way he can play. You can see that when they're playing in the URC and they're playing for their provinces, but it is slightly different. And there's not a huge difference, but it is different when you have them in your environment across a couple of week period. And hopefully we can benefit from that time, and Frawls can benefit from that time with us when he goes back into Leinster after this trip.